Cuthberts gives visitors a lifetime of alternative routes to explore. Perhaps the simplest, at least in concept, is to follow the water from the base of the entrance rift to the deepest and furthest point into the cave, sump 2 at the end of Cuthberts 2. The reality becomes increasingly complex when the water divides into multiple alternatives at the base of the erect pitch. The main flow creates an obligatory shower bath at the bottom of the fixed ladders of the ledge pitches. In flood, this requires preparation.
Amount of water coming down there, that's very impressive.
The stream then rushes down Wire Rift. Until it disappears down the waterfall and wet pitches, leaving the cavers to traverse on in the dry.
So you drop into a erect chamber down the ladder, which we've done before, and then pulpit is a very short distance to the head of the pitch.
Alternative route, named the new route by the original explorers, takes less water.
Okay, I'm ready.
It took all their available ladders and was named Pulpit Pitch after the ledge 14 metres down. This led to a high descending rift.
So you go around here and you're running underneath everything.
With another short pitch. And then a fine, gower-floored streamway.
It's got a superb streamway which is often overlooked, but if you actually go into the cave and follow the streamway right through the system, it's as fine as any other on Mendips.
The original explorers combined the old and new routes at the water chute. Nowadays, there are a number of alternatives that are more commonly used.
Beyond the water chute, the passage then, again, it's large passage until it gets to this point here, which is traverse chamber.
The streamway reduces in gradient and becomes a delightful obstacle course, always surprising and full of variety.
The stream's running in the floor, and then there's a very steep, wide, banked bedding wall that slopes up this angle. And what people normally do is climb up here, go through this thing called bypass and drop down.
After a few short cascades, the gentle passage gradient results in rift sections through the steeply dipping limestone beds.
a stone pitch here, like that, right? And then there's a free ride. And then there's up here, you go up here and episode.
Look at the floor, but then once you fall off.
Disgusting.
And then turning.
Downstream from Plantation Junction, the stream passage takes on a grander character. The partial refilling of the void by huge flowstone domes is almost continental in scale. Once again, the journey is full of an energetic mixture of climbing and traversing. The Great Gower is one of the largest in the UK. From the top of the Great Gower, the fault-aligned Gower Rift can be seen stretching southeast towards the Duck and Sump 1.
We had telephone wire going all the way through, and then we just built dams.
Yeah, so this is a dam put in when they were digging the sump 2 and sump 1 earlier, and it stops the water going ahead.
Because the first sump was being dug in 69.
No, is that what you're calling the ducks?
That was the duck.
I was trying to work out.
No. That there was before the sump was actually excavated. Then it was a low creek with a duck. And then you went into a chamber. So that is actually called the duck.
But is it a duck?
No, not now because we've got the sump empty.
Nice and dry. That doesn't look terrible, but
Sump 1 was a major sticking point in the exploration of the cave. First visited in 1957, sporadic but intensive attempts to pass it were eventually successful on Halloween night 1969.
There were a number of attempts to pass Sump 1 by bailing and digging, and with the use of divers digging underwater. In early 1969 it was decided to build a series of temporary dams to prevent water reaching the duck and to allow the sump to be dug in relatively dry conditions.
Oh, nice to get away from the crowds, isn't it? Isn't this refreshing?
Front on the left.
From the Shepton Mallet Caving Club hut log, and soon there was room to get ahead between the top of the gravel and the roof. Urged by the others, I groped up against the bank, peered over the top. The view was momentous. I crawled through, sliding on my stomach, almost pushed through by an enthusiastic John Riley. Standing up, I could look downstream in a passage at least 40 feet high and where the power of my light faded away. I yelled something like, "Whoopee, this is it, lads, Cuthberts 2.
Cuthberts 2 feels so simple in comparison to the rest of the cave. It is mostly straight, mostly walking, mostly gentle gradient, and almost devoid of tributaries. It's good to visit though, and has some good shapes. The real reason for going there is to at least see sump 2.
So this is Cuthberts 2. In the 60s and 80s, Matt came down and they had another massive digging session.
In 1982, Stuart McManus and Alan Butcher returned to the sump with a view to drilling over the top, but this was quickly abandoned in favour of baling.
We used to use buckets, but of course buckets and baling took a long time in the airlock bags.
Times to empty the sump were improved with the use of hand-operated pumps and displacing water in the sump with plastic bottles. In 1984, a new dam had been constructed and plans were made to use an electric submersible pump over the summer of 1985. Negotiations were made to borrow fire hose from Somerset Fire Brigade, with enough hose to run from the Belfry car park to sump 2. So the sump was drained in less than 30 minutes. This meant that digging could begin within an hour of starting. By mid-July, the sump had been pushed to a depth of 25 feet below normal water level and 65 feet in length, yet still the passage was going down. With the pump supplier and the fire brigade wanting their equipment back, the diminishing space available in the dams meant that the operation had to be abandoned at the end of July 1985.
Phil got much further than we did.
5 years ago we had a large project where we were dive digging this sump, and we dug about 30 metres into the sump and about 8 metres depth, and then we went through a narrow constriction, and beyond that narrow constriction we got a large boulder that we couldn't get past. So we parked the dig for a while, and we were going to think about ways we could maybe try and get past the boulder again, maybe diving again, because the visibility in the water, you cannot see anything. So it's quite disappointing to come down today. As you can see, this is all sediment that's been washed in, so we've probably lost all that we've dug before.
It's a phenomenal dig that cannot be passed by diving alone, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was for us. That was a disappointment.
Yeah.
The pumping had a problem that the more spoil you dig out and you let the dams go, then more water you've got to store the next time.
Yeah.
So with diving, you don't have that problem.
No.
The only problem for us is we got an obstacle, big boulder that we couldn't get past.
Yeah.
So again, that was really frustrating after all the effort. It's a big prize because it's the fastest flow through to Wookey.
It is.
So
So the 8 hours from here.
There's a lot of open passage beyond here to Wookey.
Absolutely.
And it's probably the last big find to do on Mendips, really.
No, absolutely agree.
This just looks like a cobble, but it's actually sandstone. So this cobble has come in from surface. And when we were dive digging the sump, I've got a cobble about twice the size of this on my mantelpiece that's perfectly round. And what that tells us is that the cobbles come from surface, but the volume of water that requires to move such a massive cobble from the surface all the way down into that sump's big. So that at some point there must have been a really quite big river coming through here, and that's kind of why everyone's so keen that we've got a blockage ahead of us, maybe a stout boss or a curtain's come down, block the passage. If we could get past that, we'll be back in open passage and we'll be running again.
Yeah.
So the cobble is really, really interesting.
And it makes an excellent thing to have on your mantelpiece as well, do you know?
Yeah, it's quite nice, but it's more
a reminder.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, as Phil said, this is the major cave to get to Wookey, that's for sure. There's no two ways about it.
There's just so many different routes and so many different bits of the cave to explore.
We don't have to have the place littered with tape everywhere.
Interesting physical challenges that require a bit of thought to get past them.
Been preserved for over 50 years now by the warden system.
Kind of set pieces like the entrance rift and wire rift.
Really fantastic hidden gems, like some of the SRT pull-through trips. I don't think I could ever get bored of going there.
Yeah, St Cuthberts, the rift, bit of a pain, but you get used to it. The rest of the cave is fantastic. most of us go to it is because it's right next to the hut and we haven't got to really walk very far. And we can drink as much as we want when we come back.
It's surprising how often you'll find formations that you've never really looked at before.
I still see something new on a regular basis.
You can always create a route that you haven't been on before.
Any cave or Mendip that I was going to do over and over and over again, I actually would always choose St Cuthberts.
I feel the BEC is very privileged to have such a beautiful cave on its doorstep.